This story is titled, "She Survived the Crash That Killed Our Parents, but my wife made her feel unwanted until she ran away." I never thought I'd be writing anything like this. Yesterday afternoon, out of nowhere, I got a call from the police. They told me my parents had been in a car accident. Neither of them made it. Just like that, they were both gone. My little sister, she's only 10, was in the car too. By some miracle, she survived without any major physical injuries. But she was terrified, shaken to her core, and sitting alone at the police station waiting for someone to come get her. I don't even remember the drive over. All I know is I dropped everything at work and tore out of there like my life depended on it. When I walked into the station, there she was, curled up on a hard plastic chair in the corner, her little face blotchy and red from crying. She looked so small, so scared. The second she saw me, she ran straight into my arms, clinging to me like I was the only safe place left in the world, sobbing into my shirt. She was trembling head to toe. One of the officers had been sitting with her, trying to calm her down. They were kind. They handed me emergency custody papers to sign, basically saying I was taking responsibility for her. They mentioned a CPS worker would follow up later, but at that moment I didn't care about any of that. All I could think about was getting my sister out of there and somewhere safe. I brought her home with me. There was no hesitation. She's my sister, and she's my responsibility now. End of story. On the way, I called my wife to explain, as best I could in a rushed 2-minute conversation, what had happened. Maybe it didn't sink in for her. When we walked through the front door, my sister was still clutching my arm, barely making a sound except for the occasional sniffle. She was in shock. My wife came out of the kitchen, took one look at us, and I swear I saw her whole face twist in disgust. She muttered something under her breath that I didn't catch. As I gently guided my sister to the couch, she suddenly blurted out, loud enough for both of us to hear, "God, that's disgusting." I whipped my head around. What? What's disgusting? She gestured toward my sister, who had been crying so hard her nose was running and some snot was on her face. "I can't. This is gross," my wife said, wrinkling her nose like she'd just smelled something rotten. My sister heard her. She buried her face in my side and started sobbing again, this time quieter, like she was ashamed. I grabbed a box of tissues and wiped her face, whispering to her that it was okay, that none of this was her fault. Meanwhile, my wife stood there for another second, grimaced, and then said, "I need a minute," before walking upstairs and shutting herself in our bedroom. She didn't say a single word to my sister. Not a hello, not an "I'm sorry," nothing. No hug, no comfort, nothing. I was stunned. And honestly, I was furious. Yes, I know this was a sudden, heartbreaking tragedy. Yes, I know none of this was in the plan for our lives. But my wife and I have been together for 8 years, married for 5. She spent holidays with my family. She knows my sister. I never in a million years imagined she'd react like this. But I pushed my anger down for the moment and focused on my sister. I helped her wash her face, found one of my old t-shirts for her to sleep in since we didn't have any clothes for her yet, and let her curl up on the couch. She didn't want to be alone, so I sat with her, holding her close as she cried herself to sleep. Once she finally drifted off, I carried her into the guest room and tucked her in. The whole time, my wife stayed locked in our bedroom. She never came out to check on us. After my sister was asleep, I went to confront her. I found her lying in bed, scrolling on her phone. I shut the door quietly behind me and said, "We need to talk." I kept my voice low so I wouldn't wake my sister. "What the hell was that?" I asked. "She's a little girl who just lost both her parents. Could you not show her even an ounce of compassion?" My wife sat up and immediately went on the defensive. "We agreed, no kids. That was our deal. No children. Not yours, not mine, not anyone's. Remember?" "This is different," I said. "This is my sister. I can't just abandon her." "You're breaking the agreement," she shot back. "Being child-free was a core promise we made to each other. I'm sorry your parents died, I really am, but you can't just bring a kid into our house and expect me to be okay with it. There are other options." I knew what she meant, but I asked anyway. "What other options?" "The foster system exists for a reason," she said flatly. "There are people trained to handle this. She'd probably be better off with a family who actually wants kids." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She doesn't want to live with some strangers she's never met. She wants to be with me. I'm all she has left, and I'm not dumping her in foster care. My wife sighed like I was being unreasonable. Did you really think I'd be okay with this? We were happy before. I want that life back. I'm not going to set myself on fire to keep someone else warm. That's your take? I asked. She's not just someone else. She's my family. Well, she's not mine, my wife snapped. If you want to ruin your life, that's on you. But don't expect me to stick around for it. I just stood there for a moment, stunned. Then I turned and left the room without another word, because I could feel the anger boiling over, and I didn't want to say something I couldn't take back. I spent the rest of the night on the couch outside the guest room, listening to my sister's soft breathing as she slept. Less than 24 hours ago, I thought I had a clear picture of my life. A happy marriage, a stable routine. Now it feels like the entire thing is coming apart. My wife is furious at me for bringing my sister home, and I'm furious at her for reacting this way. I don't know what's going to happen next. All I know is that my little sister needs me more than anyone right now. I raised my voice, practically shouting, "Why the hell didn't you call me the second you realized she was gone?" That finally got her attention. She put her phone down, looked me dead in the eye with this irritated, almost bored expression, and said flatly, "Look, she's been nothing but trouble. Honestly, it's better this way." I froze. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Better this way? Are you out of your mind? She's 10 years old. How in the world is her being missing a good thing? She let out this bitter little smirk and said, "I'm saying your little burden of a sister solved the problem for us. If she ran off, well, that's one less thing tying you and me down, isn't it? Maybe she went to someone who actually wants her. This is probably for the best. Now we can finally get our lives back." I stared at her, stunned. "You're sick," I said. "You actually think a child running away is some kind of solution?" She just waved her hand dismissively like I was the one being unreasonable. "You're overreacting. Kids run away all the time when they're upset. She'll turn up, or someone else will deal with it." That was it. I realized right then I was wasting precious time arguing with her while my little sister was out there alone. I grabbed my keys and started calling every friend and family member I could think of, begging them to help me look. Within minutes, I had a small search party together, my best friend, a couple neighbors, and a cousin. We spread out across the neighborhood, combing through every street, park, and corner store she might have gone to. I called the police, too, reporting her missing and giving them her description. As I drove around with my hazard lights flashing, I was shouting her name out the window like a madman. Every awful possibility ran through my mind. What if she was hurt? What if someone grabbed her? It was pure agony. For hours we searched. The park, the route to her old school, my parents' old neighborhood, anywhere I thought she might have wandered. I called her little cell phone over and over, but it kept going straight to voicemail. Finally, around 3 a.m., my phone rang. It was my buddy Jake. The relief in his voice was palpable as he said, "I found her." I nearly collapsed from the wave of emotion that hit me. Jake gave me the location, behind a 24-hour Walmart about 2 miles from my house. I floored it there, barely breathing. When I pulled up behind the store, I saw Jake kneeling next to a small figure curled up on the cold concrete by the loading docks. It was Emily. She was shivering, crying, hugging her knees so tight it looked like she was trying to disappear. The moment she saw me, she bolted upright and ran straight into my arms, sobbing so hard she could barely breathe. She clung to me like her life depended on it, and honestly, it probably felt like it did to her. "I've got you. I'm here. You're safe now." I kept whispering, over and over, holding her tight. I don't even know if I was saying it more for her or for me. She kept apologizing through her sobs, saying, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "Sweetheart, you have nothing to be sorry for," I told her. "Nothing. I'm the one who's sorry, for not seeing how scared you were, for not being here sooner." She sniffled and whispered, "I didn't want to be a problem. I didn't want to ruin your life." That broke me. Once she calmed down a little, I gently asked, "Why did you run away, Emily? What made you so scared you thought you had to leave?" Her voice was barely audible as she explained. "While I was at work, my wife spent most of the day on the phone with her friends, and she was deliberately talking loud enough for Emily to hear. She said I'm a useless burden," Emily whispered. "She said I'm an annoying orphan who ruined everything. She said she's stuck babysitting me and that she wishes I'd just disappear so she could have her old life back." My little sister had overheard every single vile word, and she believed it. She thought she was destroying my marriage and my happiness just by being there. So she ran away because she thought it would fix everything. In her mind, everyone, me, my wife, would be better off without her. As she told me this, I felt my heart shatter and my blood boil all at once. Emily, listen to me, I said firmly, holding her face in my hands so she couldn't look away. None of that is true. Not one word. You are not a burden. You didn't ruin anything. What happened to our family was not your fault. And I love you more than anything in this world. You hear me? I will never, ever let you go. You're stuck with me forever. She started crying again, but this time I felt like maybe, just maybe, she believed me a little. When she was calm enough, I carried her to my car. Jake had already called off the search and let the police know we'd found her, so thankfully no one was left worrying. By the time we pulled into my driveway, it was close to 4 a.m. I was drained, but the anger I felt toward my wife was burning hotter than ever. When I opened the door, I noticed the front door was still unlocked. She hadn't even bothered to lock it after realizing Emily was gone. I helped Emily wash her face and got her into clean pajamas. She was so exhausted she could barely keep her eyes open. I tucked her into bed, and she fell asleep almost immediately. Then I went to confront my wife. She was asleep in our bed, sound asleep, like nothing had happened. The fact that she could just crawl under the covers and drift off after all this, it sent a fresh wave of rage through me. I flipped on the bedroom light, and she jolted awake. What the hell, she mumbled. Do you know what time it is? Get up, I snapped. You need to leave. Now. She blinked, rubbing her eyes. What? Why are you yelling? Pack your things and get out, I said, my voice low but seething. I'm done. You're not staying in this house another day. That snapped her out of whatever fog she was in. She bolted upright, her eyes wide, and started shouting. Are you out of your mind? It's 4 a.m. I'm not going anywhere right now. I didn't budge. I told her, calm but firm, that she was leaving, tonight, and that I wouldn't let her spend another second under the same roof as my sister. She swung her legs out of bed, her voice rising. You can't just kick me out of my house. I glared at her. Watch me, because that's exactly what's happening. She saw it in my eyes. I wasn't bluffing. I told her flat out that if she didn't leave willingly, I'd call her parents, her sister, hell, even the police if I had to. And I meant every word. That's when the tears came. Frustrated, angry tears. She started rambling about how she didn't mean for it to get this far, and how she was just venting on the phone. Then, in one final attempt to deflect, she actually had the audacity to blame my sister, saying, if Emily hadn't been eavesdropping, none of this would have happened. That was it for me. I stared at her and said, low and steady, if my sister had been hurt, or worse, last night, her blood would have been on your hands. You're cruel. You're heartless. And there's no way in hell I'm staying married to someone who could do this to a child. She started yelling something about how I was choosing that kid over me and throwing away our life. I didn't even let her finish. You're absolutely right, I said. I am choosing her over you. And the fact that you call my sister that kid tells me everything I need to know. This isn't even a hard choice for me. Now pack your stuff and get out. That's when she realized I wasn't backing down. Her face twisted with rage as she threw some clothes and toiletries into a bag. She screamed that I'd regret this, that I was blowing up our lives. But I didn't say a word. I just stood in the hallway, arms crossed, making sure she actually walked out that door. She called her sister to come pick her up. Even as she dragged her bag down the stairs, she was still cursing under her breath and crying angry tears. I stayed silent. At 5 a.m., the car finally pulled away, and I locked the door behind her. The second I turned the key, I broke down. Later that morning, after maybe an hour of restless sleep, I got up and started making calls. I told my lawyer to move forward with filing for divorce immediately. I also called the child services caseworker and explained, at least the broad strokes, what had happened. I filed for emergency guardianship of my sister, and thankfully, they fast-tracked everything. There was no way in hell I was letting my wife have any say in my sister's care after this. Believe it or not, later that day, she actually texted me. A long, angry message blaming me for everything. If you'd just listened to me from the start, none of this would have happened, she wrote. I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. As far as I was concerned, our marriage was already over. My only focus now was my sister. The divorce? It's moving along quietly. My wife, well, ex-wife, isn't contesting anything. We didn't have kids together, Our finances weren't complicated, and honestly, I think she just wants this over as much as I do. More importantly, I was granted permanent legal guardianship of Emily last month. At the court hearing, the judge asked her directly if she felt okay living with me. She nodded shyly and even gave him a small smile. That moment, it made my chest ache with pride. It felt bittersweet, knowing why I had to step into this role, but I've never been more certain about anything in my life. The past few months have been a healing process for both of us. Emily's been seeing a counselor once a week at her new school, and it's helping. At first, she clung to me constantly. Nightmares, tears, and she didn't want me out of her sight. But little by little, I've seen her begin to heal. She's smiling more. She's made a couple of new friends. She's even started humming to herself while doing her homework, a sound I hadn't heard since before the accident. Our lives look completely different now. Mornings are chaotic, packing lunches, making sure she's got everything for school. Evenings are for homework, dinners, and sometimes movie nights. I've had to relearn 5th grade math, which has been humbling. We've made new traditions too, Sunday pancake breakfasts where Emily insists on mixing the batter herself. And here's a fun milestone. I learned how to braid hair. The first time I tried, it was a disaster. Lopsided and falling apart. Emily laughed so hard, she almost fell off the chair. It was the first real laugh I'd heard from her since the accident, and it made me laugh too. Now, I can manage a decent braid, though she still grades me a B- on my hairstyling skills. A few weeks ago, we faced a tough task together, cleaning out Mom and Dad's house. We spent a week in there, packing up keepsakes and letting ourselves cry when we needed to. Emily kept a few of Mom's sweaters because they still smelled faintly of her perfume. I took Dad's old watch in his toolbox. As for my ex-wife's presence in my life, gone. Her sister came by to collect the last of her stuff, and the rest I donated. Boxing up 8 years of marriage was hard. I found old photos, cards, souvenirs from trips. It stung, but it also felt like closing a door for good. At first, I shared this story online, looking for support. Most people were incredibly kind, but a few critical comments stuck in my head. They said I'd been selfish for forcing a child onto my unwilling spouse. That if the genders were reversed, people would vilify the wife for doing what I did. I'll admit, those comments made me question myself. I lost sleep replaying the decisions I'd made. Did I handle things the best way? Could I have done something differently? Then one night, Emily padded out of her room to get water. She saw me sitting on the couch, lost in thought, and asked if I was okay. I told her, some people think I made the wrong choice. She tilted her head and asked, if you could go back, would you let them send me away so you could stay married? I answered instantly, no, never. I'd choose you every single time. She hugged me tight and whispered, then I don't care what they say. I'm glad you're my brother. And that was it. That one moment reminded me why I made the choice I did. Emily's safe. She's loved. She's healing. No stranger on the internet will ever make me regret that.